everyone, and welcome to another episode of Selling Greenville, your favorite real estate podcast here in Greenville, South Carolina. I'm your host, as always, Stan McCune, realtor right here in Greenville, South Carolina, and you can find all of my contact information in the show notes. If you need to reach out to me for any of your local real estate needs. Just a reminder, as always, please, if you can like the show, now if you're watching on Facebook Live, I'm doing this as a Facebook Live as well, leave a little comment. I'm not going to be able to reply in real time because I'm recording this for my actual show. But if you like it, you're listening to this on YouTube or on Spotify, Apple, whatever, leave a comment or like it or subscribe, any of those good things. Make sure you don't miss future episodes. Raph, if you're watching or listening, I don't know if he watches every episode. You'll notice a different background. My office is in the process of being renovated. And I'm going to have a natural background soon, so not a green screen. So the green screen is gone. Currently just a brown wall behind me, but that's going to look a lot more aesthetic here in the future. And today, of course, it was Independence Day. I'm wearing little patriotic colors, little red, white, and blue for you guys that are watching on Facebook Live or watching on YouTube. And my wife is calling me right now, so that's fun. Hopefully she doesn't need me because it's going to be a minute before I'm going to be able to answer that call. But hope you guys had a great 4th of July. I had a fun time cooking out, drinking, sitting at the pool, getting in the pool. A little chilly, actually, at my pool that I have. We don't get a ton of sun this time of year. Just we've got very tall trees in my property. So anyway, hope you guys had a great time. But I've been looking forward to this episode for a while. I want to look back at the bold predictions that I made at the beginning of the year and see exactly how we're doing. How are we tracking so far with these bold predictions? Because last year, I do the bold predictions every year. Last year, I wasn't super happy with how that went. I'm usually pretty good at predicting stuff. Did not do a great job last year. So I want to see, at least midway point of this year, how is it going so far? So here's what I've got for you guys. I've got the 10 bold predictions that I made at the beginning of the year, and we're just going to go through them and see how we're tracking so far. And this will help you guys to see what's going on in the market as well. So the first bold prediction I had was with regard to mortgage rates. I said that mortgage rates would remain above 6% per Mortgage News Daily for the entire year, for the entirety of 2025, despite what was happening in tariffs, the bond market, whatever the Federal Reserve was doing, all of these different things. I was very confident. There were a lot of people that thought, oh, mortgage rates for sure will go into the 5s by the end of the year. I predicted that would not happen. Now, if you're watching this on YouTube, I'm sorry I can't share this with the Facebook Live, but I'm going to share with you my screen here, and you can see mortgage rates have, in fact, per Mortgage News Daily, been above 6% for the entire year. They even went above 7% a couple of times this year. So at the moment, we're really tracking on that. Now, there is a mortgage lender who likes to troll some of my Facebook posts when I talk about mortgage rates and tell me that I need to be a licensed mortgage officer, lender, in order to be able to share this data. That's completely not true. So stop trolling. You know that that's not true. I'm just reading off of Mortgage News Daily what their aggregated average rates are. And of course, if you're interested in buying a home, you need to talk to a lender to find out exactly what your rate might be. I'm not telling you that your rate would be anything based on the way these rates are currently, but based on that one website, which is a pretty well-known, reputable website, aggregates mortgage rates all over the country, we've been above 6%. And that's the metric that I said that I would use for determining whether rates were above 6% for the year. So far, so good, right? Because at the moment, the average is 6.75. It would take probably a recession, quite frankly, in our economy for that number to go below 6% by the end of the year. So I don't see that happening. I think that I'm on track, or I was on track when I made that prediction. Second prediction, I said, will we have a recession and will inflation go to 2%? For the year, right? These are two, if you're into the, financial stuff or economic stuff, these are two questions that a lot of people have had for a long time. And my prediction back in January was that we would have no recession and that inflation would return to at or below 2% by the fourth quarter. So far, so good. The data on the economy is super interesting right now. I'm going to share my screen again on YouTube. The economic data is so interesting. We just had a jobs report that most people are saying was a really strong jobs report, but it was propped up by government jobs. Okay, so it's hard to really know what to take of that. But generally speaking, there is not a clear, obvious path to us going into a recession at this point by the end of the year. I still think that that's a pretty good prediction. With regard to inflation, the metric that I used in January and that I'm going to continue to use is PCE. I'm not going to get into the weeds on what that is, but it's the personal consumption expenditures price index. And long story short, that is really one of the Fed's primary ways that they measure inflation. There's a lot of different ways to measure it. One of the main ways that they measure it is PCE. And so based on PCE, we are currently at 2.3%. That is the number. And I said that we would get down to 2% by the end of the year. I don't know. We'll see. So it started the year at 2.6% in January, went up to 2.7. Now it's down to 2.3. Now it had gone down to 2.2 in April, and then May it went up to 2.3. We don't have June numbers yet, so we'll have to see when that comes out. But it has come down zero point 0.3 points. We need it to come down another 0.3 in order for this prediction to be accurate. I don't feel super confident really about either of those, the no recession or the 2% in PCE by the end of the year. But at the moment, it is going in that direction. So we'll just have to wait and see. My third prediction, this was more for realtors. I have a lot of realtors that listen to or watch the show. The question that I had was, are there any more big changes coming to the real estate industry? And for those of you that know, we had a lot of changes last year. I'm not going to get into all of that. But what I said coming into this year is that I thought it would be mostly business as usual this year, with one major exception. And that was that I was very confident that there would be paperwork changes coming from the South Carolina Association of Realtors, and not a whole lot else that was really big coming down from the National Association of Realtors. At the moment, I feel like that this is accurate. Now, I have to give one caveat. The National Association of Realtors did roll out this change, and I talked to you guys about it on the show. They rolled out this change that there's going to be this third way to list a house that is neither the full MLS with syndication to all the websites, and it's also not office exclusive. Those are the two options that most MLSs currently have. It's going to be kind of a midway point where you can list it on MLS, but it won't go out to the websites. It'll only be accessible to realtors and their clients who are plugged into the multiple listing service. And then after a set period of time, then it gets syndicated out to all of the other websites, homes.com, realtor.com, et cetera, et cetera. I think you have to decide whether you think that was a big change. To me, I don't think that was a big change. In fact, some MLSs I've talked to or that I've heard have said that they're not even going to implement that. They're just going to rebel against the National Association of Realtors. So I don't think that that's a big change personally. With regard to paperwork, absolutely, I nailed that one. The South Carolina Association of Realtors just rolled out a whole bunch of paperwork changes, and it's exactly what I thought it would be. They essentially basically tweaked a lot of the language after all the big changes that were last year. Now they've started to refine things and make it to where it's clearer what's in that paperwork. And there's they even added some addendums, and it's in my opinion some very, very positive changes that the Forms Committee and everyone else over there at the South Carolina Association of Realtors have done. And so far so good. So I think you can say potentially it's looking good that I'm 3 for 3 so far. Okay. Number 4, I said that on appreciation or depreciation is that I thought we would see between either minus 1% appreciation, so negative appreciation by 1%, through 2% appreciation. So basically a 3% window was what I gave myself between -1% and 2% appreciation. I'm going to share my screen again here for those looking on YouTube. Had the wrong thing pulled up. All right. We always look at the median sales price. If you're on Facebook Live, I think Eric Mitchell's watching. Hey, Eric, good to see you. Good realtor in my office. Um, median sales price at the moment, if we look at the 12-month median, it's right at 0%. Okay. Now, if we look at since January, I haven't completely done the math on this, but I think that we're pretty much in range. We had January was a minus 2.1% median sales price, and then we had a weird 5% year-on-year uptick in February. Since then, it's been 1.6%. I think that this is going to be pretty close. So at the moment, I feel pretty good that bold prediction will probably end up in that range. Now, so much hinges on mortgage rates, right? If mortgage rates, and they have come down a little bit the past couple of weeks, if they continue to come down, this appreciation will surpass what I anticipated. So that's something that we definitely have to keep an eye on. But for the time being, that's looking pretty good at the moment. But I'm not super confident on that. We'll say for the time being, I'm 4 for 4, but not super confident about that. My fifth bold prediction was that the membership in the Greater Greenville Association of Realtors would go down. It was at the time that I recorded that episode, 5,090 members. I'm going to pull this up for you guys watching on YouTube. Again, if you're on Facebook Live, you're not going to see this. But if you're watching on YouTube, the recording that I'll release the first full week of July, you'll see here that the membership is at 5,186 based on these are the four groups that I included in that initial one. So I did not get this one, and based on what I know from being on the board of directors at GJR, we are trending in the upward trajectory at the moment. In other words, we're at 5,186. It's probably going to go higher. That's mind-boggling, right? If you're a realtor, that is going to blow your mind a little bit. But at the moment, it is looking like I did not get that one. At the moment, membership in GJR is stronger than it was at the beginning of the year and only getting stronger. So we will see. What I don't know, this isn't something I've really tracked a whole lot in previous years. So I don't know if there's a seasonality to this. So I don't know if there's potential that we'll end the year softer than we are currently. But that'll definitely be something that'll be interesting. And of course, at the end of the year, I'll do an episode where I actually go over, okay, now that we have all the data, how did I do? How did these bold predictions actually do? Another one here, inventory. I asked the question, will inventory go up or down? And my prediction was that we would see month-on-month increases in inventory until February or March, probably March. And at that point, we would see the month-on-month increases stop, but the year-on-year increases would continue until June or July. I regret to say that I did not get this one. Like I completely got destroyed by this one. The inventory has been much, much stronger than I anticipated for this year. So again, I'm sharing my screen on YouTube. We have continued to have month-on-month increases in inventory. February was stronger than January. March was stronger than February. April was stronger than March. The May number, we don't have June yet. The May number is inflated. That's going to come down. That's going to be revised. But I still believe that it's going to be stronger than April. So far, month-on-month increases the entire year, and dramatic year-on-year increases as well. So we've got a couple of months left for me to get half of this right, but I don't think I'm going to. I think that this is our inventory situation has exploded in comparison to what it has been, which you can see if you're looking on the chart. You can actually see that on here, how it is like a roller coaster going upward. At the moment, no, I did not get that one, and I don't think I'm going to get that one. So we'll call it 4 for 6. We're having a lot more inventory, a lot more supply in this market than a lot of people foresaw. And so that's a big, big story for 2025 because that's a big part of why does it feel soft, right? There's so much data out there that indicates that it's a strong market for sellers. And I've shared with you guys a lot of that data. But this is where you have to look at is this inventory because a lot of the data that makes it look like it's a strong seller's market has to do with all the new construction homes that are selling, not the resale homes that are the homes that you care about. If you're selling a home, odds are you're not selling a brand new home, right? Unless you're a builder. And so that's the story there. My seventh bold prediction was that pending sales, I asked the question, will pending sales continue to increase? And I said, yes, that I was predicting pending sales to increase year on year in every month in 2025. And then I said some other things with regard to that. I thought that this would be potentially due to mortgage rates moderating a bit, and I was wrong. I was right until April, but April we had a negative print. We had pending sales were minus 2.4% year on year compared to April 24. And May, again, this is another number that gets revised. It'll get revised upward. But the May number is also, in my opinion, after it gets revised, going to be a negative print as well. And this is another one of the interesting stories. So really, what I should have predicted that closed sales would go up every month because that has happened. We have had positive prints year on year for closed sales for every single month in 2025, but not for pendings. That was the thing that I didn't anticipate. And I've talked to you guys about this before. What's happening, in my opinion, why pending sales would not be strong, but closed sales would be strong, at least in the data here, is we're seeing finally sellers and buyers having a meeting of the minds where there's not as many buyers walking away. There's not as many sellers refusing to do repairs. Everyone is more interested in keeping a deal together. It took us a few years to get to this point of equilibrium where kind of everyone understood, okay, the market has shifted. It's no longer this crazy seller's market. It's also not a buyer's market, right? There was a stretch where buyers were like, ooh, is this a buyer's market? And you would see all these, doom and gloom posts about, 2008 all over again. Well, there might be some pockets of Texas, Florida, some other places where it is kind of like that, where there is a market that has shifted to a buyer's market, but not in Greenville. That would be there's a lot still that has to happen for it to truly, truly be a buyer's market. I'm not saying it won't happen. It just hasn't happened yet. And so the pending sales numbers, very interesting. That we started the year with 3 straight positive year-on-year months, but it has gone down the past 2 months. Fewer people are going under contract than previous years, even though more homes are being sold than the year prior. Cash transactions versus financing. I said, so I'm 4 for 7 so far. Okay, with 3 straight that I missed. Cash transactions versus financing. I said, I think we'll see cash transactions between 21 to 23% of closings, which is a slight decrease year on year. So let's look at that. I've got the multiple listing service pulled up. Everything that's sold year to date. We have 868 sales year to date. Let's look at how many of those were cash. 1924. All right, let's do some quick math here. 1924 divided by, what was that number? 868. Sorry, not 868. 8868, 8,868. You come up with 21.69%. So far, I've nailed this one. I said between 21 and 23% of closings. That so far is looking really good. So on average, just slightly more than a fifth of transactions in the greater Greenville market are cash transactions, just a hair above a fifth of them. I also asked here, Will Greenville County Council make onerous restrictions on development? And I said, yes, I'm quite confident that they will impose restrictions. Up to this point that they haven't. This one, we still need to monitor this one. But at the moment, I'm going to say that I did get this one. This one's looking good so far, right? I'm 5 for 8. I'm going to say that I am 6 for 9 with this one. So what Greenville County Council is doing right now is a lot of impact fees, and that is the thing that they are obsessed with. Impact fees. What's an impact fee? An impact fee is essentially a tax to a builder to quote unquote improve infrastructure. I say quote unquote improve infrastructure because a lot of times impact fees don't go towards that. But that is what they are marketed by Greenville County Council as. That, well, we're doing this. This is how we're going to improve the sewer infrastructure. This is how we're going to improve the road infrastructure. The problem is the impact fees are not nearly enough in order to do that, because if they hike the impact fees and charge the developers as much as they would have to actually improve roads, developers would just say, yeah, forget that, we're out. And, again, in terms of sewer infrastructure, things of that nature, a lot of these communities that are being developed oftentimes are on septic. So they have even imposed some things, and they're trying to impose some more restrictions on septic communities as well. So long story short, Greenville County Council is doing everything they can in order to restrict development without saying no development. And you might like that if you're a listener, just understand, and because I know that a lot of people like that. A lot of people are just like, we have too many houses, too many people here. The problem is that you either grow or you stagnate, right? And so everyone wants there to be more cool things to do in Greenville. But for there to be more cool things to do, there have to be more workers to support those cool things. Well, where are those workers going to live? So, let's say that we have a bunch more parks. Well, those parks need to be maintained. Where are those workers who are maintaining the parks? That's a blue collar job, right? Where are those workers going to live? Let's say that we build out the infrastructure for and have more fire departments, more police. Where are they going to live? And so these are the sorts of things that people aren't thinking about when they're so focused on wanting to stop development. But we need more parks, not more apartments, right? That was a tagline that was used a few years ago in county council race. Yeah, the problem is that the people maintaining the parks need the apartment to live in, right? And so these are the things that are not being thought about, generally speaking. And I'm not, just wanting to make fun of county council. They're hearing this from their constituents as well. So I understand why they are succumbing to this thought process, because their constituents that voted for them did give them a mandate. Now, is that mandate short-sighted? In my opinion, yes, extremely short-sighted. But that's something I believe I've gotten that one right so far. By the end of the year, I'll compile a list. When we go over this one more time, I'll compile a list of the things that Greenville County Council did for the year, and you guys can decide for yourself whether I got that one right. But I think so far I'm 6 for 9. Number 10, I said, will sellers stop paying buyer agents, right? This was a question that I was getting a lot when last year when the commission structure changed. And long story short is that there have been some very unique situations where I've seen sellers not be willing to pay for a buyer agent. So I'll give you an example here. I'm actually involved in a situation where I'm representing a seller client who, long story short, they befriended someone in their community that wanted to buy their house. And without me knowing this, and this isn't my preference, I would have preferred to have been involved on the front end, but whatever. Without me knowing it, they kind of worked out an arrangement that, here's a price, this works, there's not going to be any buyer agent fee or anything like that. And then after they'd already worked that out, it was like, okay, Stan, now you come along and you handle this. Well, then after I started to do all my disclosures with the unrepresented party, right, because I represented the seller, the first thing you have to do in this situation is disclose everything. And specifically, I have to disclose I'm representing the seller, I'm not representing you, the buyer, and you have the option to be represented as is your legal right. Well, after I did that talk, the buyer said, yeah, actually, I do want to be represented. This doesn't sound like a good situation where it's like one party has a fiduciary, but I don't. And so, long story short, we were able to work it out. But the seller is not paying for the buyer agent in this instance. That is about the only example that I've found of this, because the reality is that most buyers can't afford to pay for their buyer agent. And so this is a conversation I have with sellers sometimes. I'll explain to them, listen, it's up to you whether you want to compensate a buyer agent or whether you want to offer any sort of compensation to a buyer agent. Just understand that the buyer is interested in your home. They might not be able to afford their buyer agent. So that's something that you just need to be prepared for. You might be limiting the pool of buyers that can come through your house. That's entirely up to you. And I will still market the house to the best of my abilities and try to get it sold and find a buyer that can afford for their buyer agent so that you don't have to come out of pocket for that. But just be prepared that you might get some pushback. You might get some negative feedback from some people, because what happens is I list a house, I start getting text messages from agents saying, hey, is the seller offering any buyer agent commission? If my answer is no, oftentimes I either don't get a response or there is like a more back and forth and like, okay, well, can we work this out some way? Will they reconsider? And so that's something that people just have to keep in mind. But by and large, that's the situation has been that people still understand that they need a buyer agent. Real estate transactions are so complicated right now. I just gave you an example, right? That of a buyer, and to be clear, even for an unrepresented party. So I can represent a seller, a buyer comes along and wants to make an offer. Even though I'm not representing them, I can still perform what's called ministerial acts. I can still, if they want to make an offer, I can write up the offer for them. I just can't provide them advice because I'm not representing them. And here's a party that they immediately recognize this is a bad deal for me, and they're paying out of pocket for their buyer agent because they see the value of that. And that's by and large the way almost every buyer feels, right? And sellers are understanding that by and large as well. So the compensation structure and all of that has changed, but for the most part, buyer agents are still getting paid as they normally have. Just there's a few more little hoops that we have to go through in order to communicate it, in order to make it work, because we're no longer allowed to advertise that directly in the listing. So in my opinion, so far, my mid-year look at the bold predictions, I am 7 for 10, and I feel pretty good about that, right? Last year, I feel like I was like 5.5 out of 10, something like that. So I'm improving my stats. I need to keep this going, and hopefully, maybe there will be a year when I will be 10 out of 10. But you know what? These predictions are bold for a reason. I don't just go in there. I could easily make predictions that I'm like very confident are going to hit. I don't do that. I try to give you guys the good stuff. So that's it for today's episode. Thank you so much for listening. If you're on Facebook Live, thank you guys for watching as well. Thank you to everyone that has liked the show, subscribed, all of those good things. If you haven't, please do it so you don't miss future episodes. If you need a realtor in the Greenville area, let me know. I'm your guy. And until then, I hope you guys sober up, right, from the July 4th holiday if you haven't already. But I hope you guys are doing great. Have a great summer. Gonna keep providing you guys content all summer long. And until then, I hope you guys stay safe when we will talk again next time.